Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Michael May. For those who know me, you know that I'm much more comfortable way behind the scenes than right here. So I appreciate the grace. And as we come here today to celebrate the one and the only Marcus Harrison Green. All right, I brought my notes because there are a couple things I have to say, and then once I say those things, and I'll put this down and try to engage with you much more like a human being and whatnot. First of all, it's really wonderful to see humans outside of a studio and outside of a screen. For those of you who are watching on screens, thank you for being here as well. Appreciate you being here. Man, beautiful faces, beautiful people, beautiful bodies. Thank you. Like seriously. Oh, also, I'm not very formal, so if you want to make noise and everything, like that's cool. It's fine. Be excited to be celebrated. I'm when Marcus told me about this book a while ago, I was like, yo, I can say yo. Props. Like, any kind of endeavor that anybody goes through and sees all the way through to completion is something worth celebrating. And that could be a 5K, that's a book, that's a painting. I'm looking at his artwork on the wall and everything. Like anything that somebody wakes up one day and says, I'm going to do this. I'm going to set out to accomplish something and then later achieve it. That is something worth celebrating. So before I go into the stuff I have to say, I'm looking at you, my brother. Eye contact. Props. Congratulations. All right, here we go. And I act like I don't know how to talk to a microphone. Okay, number one, I asked Marcus when I got here, I was like, hey man, how do you want to describe this thing? Like, is it a book launch? Is it a party? Like, what is it? What kind of energy do you want to bring into this space? And he said to me, this is a celebration of the book and to the people who inspired it. You gotta live life. And what I found really particularly powerful about that was in no place in that description did he mention himself. And that's the kind of person that I know Marcus to be, always putting people and community above and in front of himself. And so if it's okay with you, may I also add celebrating you. Is that cool? I mean, you can say no, it's all about agency. All right, cool. So I'm gonna add that. So celebrating the book, the achievement, the people who inspired it, also Marcus Harrison Green. All right, number one, check. All right, got that. Okay, number two, there's food in the back provided by Chef Tarek. If you don't know who Chef Tarek is a person who is always talking about showing love and care through food with a mission to feed the people. Teaches people how to cook, teaches people about building positive and healthy relationships with food. It's not just about stuff that tastes good and is healthy, but building an entire ecosystem in which people can feel really engaged with themselves, their communities, and the entire system around food and nourishing each other and our bodies. So props to Chef Tarek. There is a chicken and lentil option as well as a vegan option. So if you haven't grabbed any food, feel free to do so. It's in the back. There's also water, wine, and soda available as well. Chef Tarek is pretty cool. Number three, shout out to Lisa Cooper, who is Marcus Harrison Green's roommate. Marcus says, thank you for putting up with me despite myself. Also want to give a special shout out to the partners here. And if I forget anybody, I'm sorry. I didn't write everybody down, but I believe Afron from Boona making this space available. Vladimir from Elliot Book Company. Let's see, who else am I missing? I already said Chef Tarek, Lisa Cooper from Boona, Elliot Book Company. There are some people that might not be mentioned in the program, but who I know are very dear to Marcus and for this process as well. So I'll just throw out a couple of additional names. I know there are, there's Sharon Ivory Williams, there's Langston, Seattle Times, South Seattle Emerald, We already mentioned Boona, Seattle Public Library System, and of course, write the names down, Mama and Papa Green, for raising such a wonderful couple of human beings. And I think that's it for the stuff I have to say, because this is not about me, this is about Marcus, and also some people that are going to be up here showing some love through performances. I'm going to put this down. Thank you all once again for being here. Marcus, there's a couple more things I'll say about you. The first time we met, I remember we were at the Impact Hub. Susan Gleason from Yes Magazine at the time was like, hey, Michael, I want you to meet this person. He is a fellow? Fellow, yes, a fellow at Yes Magazine. And if it weren't for Susan Gleason, I would have been like, did you say that because he's Black? But, and I thought that for a second, okay, no, this is Susan Gleason. I trust her, let's engage. And instantly, we became friends. Mad respect to what you're doing in and out of the community, in and out of publishing, just the way you bring yourself into this world. Much props to you. I don't know anybody who works as hard as you for other people. And with that, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this over to Marcus Harrison Green, because this is about you, man.
Hello? Well, how's everybody doing tonight? Thank you for being here. Thank you for telling me that I am more valuable than a Seahawks game tonight. That means a lot in this region, and I very much appreciate that. Thank you so much for that intro, Michael. You know, he's off of what I think 3 hours of sleep today, and he was able to come in and fill in as MC. And you did a tremendous hell of a job. So thank you. Thank you all for being here in person today. I know this is a VIP invitation only for the in-person crowd with what we're still going with and dealing with the pandemic. So thank you for making it here today. I do want to say that again, we do have wonderful food in the back. We have wonderful wine. You know, try not to overindulge. I'm only looking at one person. You've been friends, but I'm playing. But seriously, thank you all for being here today. This is a day to celebrate not just the book, but the world and the community that it's sprung forth from, and the people that it's sprung forth from. I see everybody here today. Majority of you are folks who have continued to just enrich my life, continue to just act as a foundation for me to continue to rise. There are so many times when I've fallen into deep despair. You all have guided me out of it with your love and with the might of your care and compassion. So thank you again. Tonight I'm going to start off with a reading from a selection called Filling Your Own Cup. I wrote this after a very dark period of my life. I had, not to be too heavy tonight, but this is a heavy book. I had tried to take my own life and didn't know what was worth living for. And I was eventually able, thankfully, to find that in my family and my friends and in the love of so many people. So I will start off with filling my own cup, and then the wonderful Amber Flame is just going to come up here and give you a wonderful musical performance. So, all right. As someone whose profession demands that I traffic in reality, I can tell you that too often our society is repulsed by the very notion of truth. It's more convenient to believe in a world that's inherently fair and just than it is to confront one where patriarchy and racism might lose a round or two, but ultimately stand undefeated. It's easier to believe in a life where everything you've received has solely been the product of your own labor, rather than just one of a multitude of variables such as luck and privilege. It's easier to believe that you are who others advertise you to be. as opposed to who you are when there is no one watching. It's so much easier to prefer the smoke over the flame. Delusion is the most powerful intoxicant in the world. It has no more powerful variant than self-delusion. I found this out myself the way most people learn, the hard way. It was a day not so far in the past when I had hit my darkest point in life. Ironically, this was at a moment when career-wise I couldn't have flown higher. I had accolades, awards, and acclaim for my writing. I had a sterling reputation to people outside my tight-knit circle, and I had a photogenic smile that defrosted the most stoic curmudgeons. I was called a future leader, destined for big things. But beneath the surface was a hollowness. Beneath there was a numbness that no amount of social justice treatise I wrote, speeches I gave, or stories I covered could fill. And so I tended to fill that with anything that made me feel alive, or made me feel anything at all. For years, I had battled deep depression. And for years, I had not accepted my diagnosis of bipolar disorder. For years, I thought the best treatment for the challenges I knew but didn't want to believe I had was to self-medicate with alcohol and other substances in the grace of the people home to me. But neither was working anymore. And there was only one way out of this nightmare. Now, my mother will tell you that it was God who told her to come back to the house that day. I'm still not quite sure if he exists or not, but if he does, it had to be him who gave her the speed to run up and cut the power cord I had attached to my neck. At the hospital, she cupped my hand in hers for what seemed like forever before she finally said, I love you with all my heart. I love you unconditionally with all of your flaws and all your pain. But I can't love you as much as you can love yourself. No one can. Can you love yourself? She asked me. My response, I don't know. I've never tried before. But that was how I learned to accept myself, to no longer be at war with who I was. Being bipolar means that every day is an adventure lived intentionally and deliberately. It's hard to be captive to a mind that regularly betrays you. It's hard when your actions at the most inopportune moments feel authored by another person. You ultimately have to surrender to the fact that you can't willpower your way out of it. You have to do the arduous work of managing it. When you're sad, you pour tears. When you're angry, you combust, and when you're happy, you glow. It takes a special person to love me. But after 36 years, I finally found someone willing to try. I wake up inside of him every day, and the love he gives is clearly defined. The love he gives is not harmless, no, it is threatening, because the love he gives crumbles away all the untruth. It sees through all facades and pretenses and artifices I constructed to get along through life. The love he gives knows that I will never be perfect, but I am seeking improvement. It knows that I will never please everyone, but I can still impact some. It knows that my knowledge of the lived experiences of others different from me will never fully be complete, but I will make up the gap in my education. It holds me accountable to live life as the best possible version of myself, armed with humility, grace, thoughtfulness, and most of all, an immense reverence for honest self-assessment. It tells me that with all my flaws, with all my pain, with all my broken vows, with all my mistakes, abnormalities, and multitudes of sin, I am worthy of love. It took me so long to believe that and to know that, for that to become my reality. But I am so glad it is, because when that's your reality, you learn to face the day in this world so much differently. You learn to meet it not where it's at, but where you're at, in a state of loving transformation. It is love that saved me, that changed me, that propels me to this day. Where I was tiny has made me feel huge. We cannot change this world without changing and loving ourselves first. As bad as things may be, this world can wait just a little while longer for you to save yourself. May you find love within yourself. Thank you. Well, after that little light, fluffy tale, I'm going to bring up Amber Flame. It gives me great honor. Thank you, Amber, for honoring me with and honoring our audience with the song.
How y'all doing? Good. So I asked to go first because I heard Reggie Garrett playing a little bit, and it's like, so we have a real guitarist. So I'm gonna just do my little emo thing on this little emo guitar. Thank you, Marcus, for partnering with Bushwick Book Club. I love working with Bushwick because they challenged me to write songs I would never write otherwise. May never sing again, which is its own artistic challenge. I was really struck in Ready to Rise by this undercurrent story of trying to be okay, trying to be fine, just fine, I'm fine. And that like realization that had to come, that you needed other people, that you need help, that you're not alone, and how you find those people. Many of your essays inspired this song, and I wanted to try to capture that like decision to transform. I don't have a title for this song, but I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm just fine. I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm just fine. How often do we go around telling ourselves that, right? 2 days a day, I'm going down. 2 days a day, it seems there's no one around. It feels like the world's falling apart. It feels like there's something wrong with my heart. I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. I'm just fine. Yes, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. I'm just fine. I'm just not ready. Convince myself one drink will get through. Convince myself enough to make it true. Nobody cares why I'm so sad. Nobody cares until it gets bad. I'll be fine, be fine, be fine, be fine. I'll be fine. I'll be fine, be fine, be fine, be fine. I'll be fine. I'm just not ready. Gotta try something different. Gotta try something different. Gotta try something different I can do. Gotta Gotta try something different. Gotta try something different. Gotta try something different. I can change. Tomorrow, I'm gonna help someone else. Tomorrow, I'll ask for help myself. You can't know who's taking a stand. I'll find them and I'll do what I can. I'm not fine, not fine, not fine, not fine. I'm not fine. I'm not fine, not fine, not fine, not fine. I'm not fine. But I'm ready. Yes, I'm ready to rise.
Wow, Amber, thank you. Can we give Amber some more love? I know my little niece Ray is at home, like you put that on repeat. So, yeah, thank you again for that. That's it's a tremendous honor. Thank you. Speaking of Soraya, my great niece, I know she's watching today, and this next piece that I'm going to read was inspired by her. It was right after the George Floyd situation, and we had so many people pouring into the street during that time period, during that summer. And I had always been a person who was like, marches just don't matter. It doesn't, this isn't going to change. It was very sort of dismissive because I was tired of hoping in a world that could see my little niece like I saw her as a human being, not because of her skin color or whatever she chooses to be. And so I remember going to a march that happened in Bella Park here in South Sea. I don't know where technically in South King County in Britain, but it's all one big place to me. And just this outpouring of folks, I was kind of taken away. It was almost rapturous in the sense that maybe this world that we want to see is true. Maybe it can truly exist. And so the name of this essay is I Glimpsed Hope in a South Seattle Park. Soraya, I hope you are watching and are still awake, and love to your sisters, Jada, and brothers Roman and Alex. Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland. It had been another string of ungodly killings of Black Americans. I was tired of exterminating Black life. My soul had grown increasingly weary from false hopes, empty promises, and muscular words that atrophied by inaction. I swore off Black Lives Matter marches and rallies. They were placebos unable to quell intensifying pain. The last one I attended occurred after the killings of Philando Castile and Anthony Sterling by police officers in 2016. Submerged in tormented shouts of Black Lives Matter, I situated myself in downtown's Westlake Park where the march began. My cynicism anchored me there, kept me from proceeding, while the mass of people and their chanting moved farther up Pine Street. Nailing me in place was the conviction that this country would never care for Black people. At least never care more than enough to believe that uttering the right phrase would absolve oneself of racism. It would only ever subordinate Black Americans' unique struggles as identity politics, never critical priorities. It would never stop believing that one exceptional individual with Black skin placed in a position of power somehow ends racial equality, or that our racism was over. It would continue to believe in the magical thinking that says racial justice is achieved solely by class equality. Any visions I possessed of a better world perished as the deaths of Black people mounted. I resigned myself to the belief that I'd never witnessed a non-racist world in my lifetime or any other. I thought time devoted to marches and rallies raging against Black death was better spent alongside my family. There was no telling when others might be chanting their name. A police encounter could sweep them to the grave in an instant, as it had with Garner and Taylor and all the others. So I needed to cherish them now, as often as I deeply as I could. In my brother Antonio, I saw a man who has grown from his insecurities as an adoptee to a firm but fair basketball coach, now inspiring youth in the South End. A man who I can debate endlessly and comically about who is actually the greatest basketball player of all time. Obviously, it's LeBron. He was once a boy who blazed with anger over his life circumstances. He was now a man whose jokes make our family laugh so hard that BBQ sauce flies from our mouths at family barbecues. In him, I saw what society wouldn't. It would see his skin and broad stature as a fear multiplier. How in a society where police kill Black people at a rate 2.5 times higher than white people, how would he not one day be reduced to a threat or killed jogging the same way as Ahmaud Arbery was? In my precious 18-month-old great niece Sierra, with her French fry obsession and chubby cheeks, I saw unbridled joy. But I knew society could one day condemn her to the ranks of the 39% of Black children who live in poverty, or the 27.4% of Black Americans who live in poverty as adults. How would society not prematurely end her life with a no-knock warrant turned fatal as it had for at least 3 Black women since 2003? No, I thought back then, better to spend as much time as I could while they were here. This was the despondency and resignation I felt at the fires, as the fire started to blaze in Minneapolis late last month. I had little hope that these embers would spark a revolution. I felt this even as the marches proliferated in small towns that heretofore didn't seem to know Black life existed, let alone mattered. But something began to stir inside of me last Sunday, as I watched nearly 10,000 demonstrators representing a multiplicity of life pour into the meadow of Othello Park in South Seattle. I began to think not about the dead, but about the living, remembering that I was part of the latter, and what being a member of its ranks means for our future. I saw them. Those demonstrators formed a massive human amoeba of Black, worn in solidarity with the BLM movement, marching 2 miles to the Rainier Beach Safeway. The ending point was deliberate. Just 2 weeks prior, a young Black man had been shot and killed there. But today, organizers overran grounds where death recently commiserated, with a living affirmation of Black life. They brought along a message that requires perpetual resurrection. We always have a choice of hope or despair. Sunday made me choose the former for the first time in nearly half a decade. Our world remains as it is only by our captivity to the status quo. It is an oppression enforced by our inability to dream of spring in the depths of our society's winters. To know freedom, to know hope, is to allow ourselves the rendering of a world not yet born. Excuse me, let me do that again. To know freedom, to know hope, is to allow ourselves the rendering of a world not yet born, but laboring it to be. Conversation by conversation, march by march, epiphany by epiphany, day by day. And so I see it now. I glimpsed a piece of it last Sunday in Othello Park. this promised land that loves my brother and my bubbly cheeked great niece as much as I do. Thank you. Reading these essays, I might be indulging with you tonight, man, on that wine. No. I thank you all. I do want to bring up the great, wonderful Reggie Garrett. Thank you, sir, for being here today, and thank you for your musical performance.
I just want to thank Jeff from Bushwick for asking me to do this thing. I think he knew that I've had this project going recently of trying to write a bunch of songs, trying to do a CD about, I guess, scenes of Black life in America. It's something that came to me late in life. A lot of the songs are about me, my family, people I know. They're also about historical figures. Some folks who would be a historical figure, but we don't know very much about, that I'm trying to bring to light. And he mentioned this book by Marcus Harrison Green. So I read the whole thing and was kind of blown away to think, this guy lives in my city. That's kind of amazing. So I tried to think, as usual. It's difficult for me to figure out an angle. I tried to think what I wanted to write about. And what I finally came to was the idea of a newsman who is bringing to light topics, subjects, things that are of importance to the community. When I started to write the thing, I kept trying to take, I guess, pieces of what he'd done. But I finally decided that I'd use him as a springboard and move it up to an archetype of the kind of person that the community needs. Somebody who keeps us informed, who tells us about things, tries to head us in the right direction. So I call this thing the newsman. And I don't think I embellish too much. I'm a newsman, you may not know my name. I tell the people stories, I do not seek out fame. I write about the things I see and the way things ought to be. I've written long enough to know there are no guarantees. I've seen the children play, seen them shot down in the streets. I've heard the mothers' wails and moans, cruel cycle on repeat. I write all those stories, injustice I declaim. I call our leaders to account, but not much seems to change. kindness for those with naught to share. Random acts of bravery from neighbors ordinary. I often worry for our young caught in this machine. For them it's only black or white, there is no in between. Well, I've seen the world from on high, I've seen it from the ground. Traveled here to there and back, a journey so profound. I've seen the ways of the powerful, the ways it all goes down. I've peered behind the curtain, truth unvarnished and unbound. And sometimes if you look for me, you may not find me near. Sometimes if you look for me, a ray of hope just might appear. When I write to change the arc of time, past history's tyranny, I write with all my heart and soul for the change that can be. Well, I am a newsman. You may not know my name. And I love this story about your grandmother and the shotgun in the game. Reminded me of my own.
We just celebrate all of you and really just be in relationship and community with you. But we're going to do a quick discussion, Q&A with my good friend Michael here about the book. So ask me what you want to ask me, good sir.
First question I have for you, Marcus Harrison Green. The reason I keep saying that is because I one time said Marcus Green on camera, and he was like, it's Harrison Green. Harrison Green. Yeah, I'm like, my fault. You know what? I appreciate you being real and honest with me.
My parents gave me 2 or 3 names. They want,
You know what?
They want to
Let's
make
honor
sure.
that. Let's honor that. I'm all about it, though. I'm all about it. First thing, again, when I asked you about this event, what do you want out of this? When you mentioned those who inspire me, I was curious, who are some of the people that inspire you and how do they do so?
Yeah, I told this story, I think, at the last reading I was at, so I'll just briefly say it, but my grandfather, Lenny Hinton, who I never met, he definitely inspires me to write. He was a black man living in Chicago, in the 50s and 60s, and it was his life's long ambition to be a writer. He spent every single day writing, and he ended up doing a novel about the Great Wall of China, and he sent it into a publisher. Never heard anything back. About a year and a half later, he's walking through a bookstore, and lo and behold, it's his book with the white author's name on it. And so he, unfortunately, that situation kind of led him into a downward spiral. He drowned himself in alcohol and drugs and so on and so forth. It's one of the reasons that my grandmother left him. And the only, tales I really have of him is, from my mother, who could barely remember him when, my grandmother and he divorced when my mom was 4. Then she saw him again at 10, and she just remembers this broken man. And so for me, I don't know if there is such thing as vicarious redemption, or just trying to take on the dreams of your ancestors. But I know his dream is my dream, and it's not always easy to write because of the mental illness that I have. There's sometimes it's hard to recall words. It's hard to formulate sentences, and you're kind of just at the mercy of the day. But for lack of a better term, the spirit keeps me alive in terms of wanting to write and wanting to, do what I can, and to try to at least show up for work every day, even days that don't go so well. I think I'm just blessed to have so many people in my life, like yourself, like my roommate Lisa, like Nikki Barron, like my parents, like everybody here. There's nobody who I haven't crossed paths and learned something from, whether it's what to do or what not to do. But I think every person you meet is somebody you can learn from and you can take from and hopefully give to as well. Where no person is an island. I know that's a cliche, but cliches are true. And so for me, it's the world and every experience that helps to inspire me.
Thank you. I look forward to the day where I'll speak for myself. First of all, there are a lot of themes and a lot of heavy topics and things that you write about. One of which is mental illness, mental health, and your own experiences with it as well. And first of all, I applaud you for being so open in writing about this. And I look forward to the day in which that writing about one's experiences with mental illness, mental health, emotional health well-being is not something that feels out of the ordinary. But we're not there yet. So I respect that you do that. You do it for yourself and for others. And I'm wondering I feel like you have this uncanny ability to bring people together across any number of differences. And in reading your work over the past decade and seeing the kinds of things you write about and how you write about them and the intricacies in which you do, I have a couple of questions for you. I'll try to ask them one at a time. I'll ask one. There's so many questions I want to ask you about. I'll ask you at Bernard's someday. How has the writing that you have done, the questions you have asked, the conversations that you have had, the investigation that you have undergone over the past decade that is reflected in this work, how has that influenced your worldview?
It keeps me curious about life. It keeps me from falling into despair about life. I think we look at where we're going to find hope, where we're going to find possibility, and where I find it is just in people, right? In the smallest stories. Most people know this. Yesterday I announced that I'm going to be stepping away from helming and leading the Emerald at the end of this year, and just getting this outpouring of support from people, people who I've never met before in my life, who say, you changed my life. I was in a fit of despair. Had a lot of suicide ideation, and because you write and what you said, I felt seen, I felt heard, I felt known, and again, you write so that you know that you aren't alone in this world. You write to be affirmed. You write to know that no matter how inadequate you feel at times, that you are not abnormal. You're not defective. You're not to be thrown away. That your life is worth, has intrinsic value and worth. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's the answer.
That's the answer. You asked my question. I'm not here to tell you what to say. In the respective time for everybody, first of all, once again, so I made a mistake earlier. I did not read your bio. And I understand that there is an assumption, perhaps, that the people here may already know who you are, but I don't like assumptions. And also, I know this is being streamed and recorded, so there's a good chance somebody might be watching right now who's not completely aware of who you are, and somebody in the future may not be aware. Are you about to cut me off?
I was just going to say, we had 2 readings from, fairly deep readings from, we had 2 masterful songs. I mean, if they've been watching for an hour, I think they can piece it together at this point. So.
All I'm saying is that one day somebody's going to be like, Marcus Harrison Green. Oh, and I didn't do my job. And out of respect for you and for the people who may come across this later, I owe you and them your bio. Is that okay?
Do what you will, sir.
And it has truly been an honor to be here with you. Seriously.
Exactly.
Marcus Harrison Green is the publisher of the South Seattle Emerald and a columnist with the Seattle Times. Growing up in South Seattle, he experienced firsthand the impact of one-dimensional stories on marginalized communities, which taught him the value of authentic narratives. After an unfulfilling stint in the investment world during his 20s, Marcus returned to his community with a newfound purpose of telling stories with nuance, complexity, and multidimensionality, with the hope of advancing social change. This led him to become a writer and found the South Seattle Emerald. He was awarded the Seattle Human Rights Commission's Individual Human Rights Leader Award in 2020. I'm going to say that one more time. That's a recognition that I don't want to just kind of breeze past. He was awarded the Seattle Human Rights Commission's Individual Human Rights Leader Award in 2020. I know you're not all about the accolades and the recognition. You didn't even mention yourself when you're talking about what we're here for. Thank you first of all, for being who you are. Thank you for bringing yourself to this world the way you do. Thank you for continuing to exist in this world. I know it's not always easy. The systems aren't always set up and designed to make it feel as though you belong. And I appreciate that you choose to exist and to engage the way that you do. Props to you. Congratulations. I love you. Best wishes. And I'll conclude by not having the last word, but by asking you this question. What would you like to leave people with tonight?
Well, thank you, one, for being here, for honoring me in this space. I would just, as hokey as it might sound, I would just like to leave people with the fact that, love is a mighty thing. And we use that word so often in our society that it starts to atrophy and sort of starts to be just another word. But to me, my life is a manifestation of love. And that is tonight, that's these last 10 years, is when I was in depths of despair. Like I tell people, it's not easy to do things that I've been sort of tasked with to do for the last 10 years when you have bipolar disorder. It's not easy to have people who accept you but can't ever sort of understand you. And so just want to say that, tonight, myself, everybody here, it's living proof to how mighty love is. And so yeah, go out and love yourself and love somebody, and with consent, of course. But seriously, thank all of you for watching tonight. Thank all of you for being here. Continue to rise.